Okay, great. Get on to session 5 here under project management training. Mark Kakufka. Been with LaBella since 2003, but I've been in the municipal uh, design architecture business probably since 86. So that dates myself, of course. But been to several project management trainings, professional, non-professional. And I think it's a good series we're doing, just trying to help mentor all of you project managers or people who aspire to be project managers, are project managers, or coordinate with project managers. So, and then Jackie, want to introduce yourself?
So I'm Jackie D'Agostino. I work in the accounting department as the billing manager. I've been at LaBella Associates for almost 9 years. So I work in the billing department, and we'll touch on Deltec and what your dashboard should look like today.
Good. Go to the next slide. You see the overview here, so it just expands on this slide a little bit, but I think just the key points that some of the key points to hit on is you've already heard a little bit about your project plan and developing the plan. Well, we want to monitor it. Part of this session, part of a good project management is to monitor and track that plan as you go along, to not just put it in the drawer. Performance, performance of a plan, and always be looking at, as managers, you want some milestones for interim and final goals. The interim goals are probably the critical ones, so you're not doing this in the rear view mirror. Detection, limitations, and faults. I mean, it's a proactive approach that you're trying to look at and making sure that everything is going smoothly, and if it's not, then making adjustments, on time, within scope, and within budget. Talk about that a little bit. Monitoring and control changes. I mean, none of us, it's a reality of life, but life of these projects is changes, and how to kind of manage and monitor those. When to talk to management. So many times, I mean, as project managers, we're empowered to steer that ship and manage that project, but certainly there are times we have to. Things happen, good issues usually are bad issues, but we want to talk to management. A risk assessment of the project. I think it's good for managers to have enough knowledge and information about what's going on to provide some risk assessment. Making budgetary, meet your budgetary adjustment objectives, or if not, make adjustments. Invoicing, that'll be between Jackie and myself, is we got to invoice on a regular basis. And then staffing, understanding how you fit into the big picture with overall staffing, schedule, and budget. So the classic phrase people have heard for years is, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. And that's from Ben Franklin, that I've written down. You'll hear it typically at a project management class. So go to the next slide. So planning and monitoring. So earlier on, I mean, we talked about the project plan and putting the plan together, and executing the plan. It's kind of, as I said a little bit at the intro, is that it's not something that you just want to put in the drawer. So it's something that we as managers, no matter what size the project is, to some extent, we need to monitor the plan, and are we staying on track, and are we doing what we set out to do. If not, then we got to review and compare against our achievements and what we planned on doing. And if not, then we need to control it, get it back on track, make some adjustments, and then tweak the plan. Now, either you're going to go back to the original plan, or from, life has hit us and or changes have happened, or the owner has added additional scope. Well, then we need to, tweak the plan and start the process over again. So it's just, this slide is intended. It's a dynamic process. It's not something, you just set it aside, and it's something that we gotta, continually kind of manage and watch. Next slide. So, track and project planning and monitoring frequency. I mean, that's a common question that goes on is, how often should I be doing this on this continual project here, dynamics. And I think with the larger and medium projects and everybody, that definition is going to be different. I mean, I use the phase one environmental site assessments as a good example. They're $1,500 or so, and they're done within 30 days. And so, those are very small projects. They're important. They're definitive. So, the idea with those is, if you maybe you got to look at those on a after you do 5 or 10 of them or something like that. You look at those collectively. But I think on your larger and medium projects, and many of my projects fees are well over $200,000-300,000. Some of them are $1 million fees. Is that I'm looking at these on a monthly basis at a minimum to do that. And Jackie will go over a lot of great tools that we have to look at those. A minimum a monthly, and then a minimum, with your billing review, to do that. You're constantly comparing, you're looking for these indicators, and these are the things that this will lead into what Jackie's doing, looking for indicators of how are we against the schedule? How are we against, manpower and fee and hours people have on the project? So you have some idea going into this thing on how these are going to be expended and what percents complete you're going to be, or how many hours complete you're going to be. And you're looking at those against the reports to say, do I have a concern here? Am I touching base with this? I think with the contract scope, I think that the key message is any project managers, and many of you are handed projects, right? You're not necessarily, you weren't a part of the proposal. You weren't a part of putting it together. Some of you may be, but even though you're handed a project, somebody's entrusted you with the project, you got to peel it open, and you need to know the project by heart. You need to know the contract by heart, any idiosyncrasies with that contract, because if you don't, you're not going to know if it's your team is gone off in the wrong direction and you're all of a sudden providing an additional service, or you're providing added value that you're not getting compensated for. So even if I've a lunch and learn or something, I've bumped into a young project manager about a new project that he's got, and he can't tell me in a few sentences or a few paragraphs of what the project is, and as a project manager, you really got to know it by heart. So next slide.
Thanks, Mark.
Yep, Jackie's going to jump in and give us a nice short tutorial here.
Yes. So I will be as short as I can be. Deltec is pretty encompassing. Before I get started, I would like to ask just a quick poll question, if I could. I'd like to know how often you're in Deltec to manage your projects.
Gives us a good idea of where this group is at. We get different answers from different sectors that we're teaching. Adults.
Okay. So
good.
A little bit across the board, a little bit of minimum, and then a lot. So I don't know if my billers answered for some of the answers for 10 or more.
They,
But that's
they live
okay.
in there, right? They live
Yeah,
in
we
there,
live
right?
in here. But that's okay. So this is what a typical Deltec dashboard will look like for active projects. So a couple of the standard Deltec dashboard windows will include the project earnings with a multiplier. That's this report down here. The project summary dashboard. That's this one up here. This one kind of came over with our Chazen group. The budget report with an earned value. That's this report. And each report in utility, I will like dive a little bit more into, but this is really just to get you started and a quick overview. If your dashboard is not set up, then you will have to contact your biller, or if you're not sure who your biller is, then you can of course reach out to me and I can go over who your biller would be. A project detail report, that's this one. The AR invoice review dashboard, that's this one, or we otherwise name it the unpaid invoices dash part. The project list dash part, that's this. And then what we call a report, that's this over here with a couple of reports listed that include the billing report, my unbilled aging, my AR report, and then an expense invoice lookup dashboard. So I can go through the PowerPoint, but I think it's a little bit easier to kind of see it in real time. So I'm going to switch over to an established Deltec that I have. So I kind of stole somebody's Deltec. So I hope everyone can see this. Thumbs up. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So the first one is the project earnings with a mult. So this report is really nice. It's kind of it's a high level report. A key takeaway with this report is that it will update every day. And it's important to keep in mind that this remaining to bill column can cover the WIP. So switching back to the PowerPoint, everything here, it's a quick snapshot. It has all of your active projects. So if you ever close projects down, they will automatically be removed from here. And same thing if you have new projects incoming, they will automatically be added to this report. Project summary dashboard. So this will show you just another way to look at your report, your projects. It kind of shows you what's in the unbilled amount column, current hours, current charge. This current column will only show you though what's in the current month. So right now we're in September. So if you look at this report, this is only going to show you what's in the current September period. But it does show job to date information, which is really nice against the budget. And it does detail down to the phase level. And it does have this nice collapse menu. So you can go down to the phase level. And then if you click it, it rolls up to the project level. And then it just shows you the budget against the budget balance, and then job to date billed. So a couple of red flags that it does give you. It gives you the percent expended. So obviously, if it's greater than 100%, that means that you've gone past your budget. And then if it goes in the negative, that means you've gone like this one, you've gone past your budget. So things to keep in mind there. And then it also gives you your fee type here as well. So if you are unsure of how that project is being billed, you can reference that as well. So to see that in real time, that is this report here. So just like here, where I was saying that it kind of brings you down to the phase level here. If you wanted to roll it up to the project level, you would click that plus button and it rolls it up to the project level. So it just gives you the one line information. So it makes it a little bit easier to see. And then to get it back down to the phase level, you would click that plus button again, and it would bring it down again to the phase level. Anything that's blue, you can click on and bring it, it will bring up a supplemental report, which it went up on my other screen, but it brings up a supplemental report, so that way you can drill down into the details further. This is another way that you can manage your project. So if you are expecting to be substations to be farther along than it is, so you have a budget of 65,000 on this, and you're expecting the labor to be more like 40,000, you're only at 28, you know, things to keep in mind here. You can use this report for that.
Those indicators, you know, some good indicators. Yep.
The budget analysis report. This pulls from the very last tab in the PIF. This is most helpful for multidisciplinary projects. So where this is going to pull or be most useful is if you are having you know, these multi divisions working on it. So it's going to pull, you know, if you have civil working on it, if you have environmental working on it. The way I read this report most easily is it's going to give you the budget for each division, and then what's been spent on each division, and then the balance. So this report is most easiest to see if there's an overage. And if there is an overage, is there a reason for an overage? It's also, if you're looking to see if, you know, if there's a deliverable that's coming up too, you know, and they've spent $12,000 and the deliverables not done yet, you can check in with civil and say, hey, what's going on? You spent $12,000 and nothing's done yet. So it's a good checkpoint too, to use this report as well. So things to use this report for. If you need more details than just using the budget analysis report, that's when you can get into the next report, which is this next one, the project detail report. This one is going to show you a lot more detail as to the employees that worked on the report, the number of hours that they've charged onto it, and the phase that they've charged to. So you can see, you can really drill down to the details. So you can see, okay, Eric Detweiler, he charged 176 hours. But why? Why did he charge that much? You know, he was only budgeted for maybe 100 hours. So why did he charge an extra 76 hours to this project? So it can really help you to drill down more into those details if you needed to. So the way to read this report is all of the information in blue gives you the project level information. So up here will give you the project number and name. It gives you the client, the project manager. Over to the right will give you the planned compensation. So it gives you the direct labor budget. If there's any consultant budget, the total fee, and then in green will give you the same information, and then the same budget information over to the right as well. And then underneath that will be all of the charges that have hit that project and then phase. So red flags to look out for is if you have time charges for an employee, but then no budget, no billing value for that employee. So this employee that's charged 19 hours, she has a cost rate but no billing value. So that's something to keep in mind, that she charged 19 hours but there was no billing value associated with her. If an employee has no time listed or less time listed than anticipated, so especially if you're looking for more environmental people that are supposed to be charging to this time that have not charged time, and you have something that's coming due, or if you have someone that has charged time to the project that doesn't belong. So maybe Jensen charged 19 hours to this phase and she doesn't belong here. So things to keep in mind when you're looking at these reports.
Jackie, there's a question about can you make it so people are required to make comments on their time? And I'm not sure if it's
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, so you can do that at any point in time. So you can do that at the start of a project. So if you wanted to have comments required, you would put that on your PIF in the notes section. So you can say just force comments, uh, for time. Or if you wanted to do it, at a later point, or if you only wanted to do it for a specific phase, then you can do it when you set that phase up as well. You can just let your biller know at that point in time.
I will say, as having done this for many years, I strongly recommend that you have that turned on for all your projects because there is nothing more frustrating than being a PM and seeing somebody charging time and no comments, and you're not able to tell what they're doing, where they are. They don't have to be detailed comments. They don't have to go get into too nitty-gritty, but it is extremely helpful and it saves you time in the long run because you don't have to then follow up with the staff and say, well, you charged me $3,000, but I'm not seeing any work product. What did you do? And it stops staff from making it helps. So that's all I say. It helps a whole lot from the project management perspective.
Yeah. I see another question. How do you track percent complete versus percent spent? Well, I know how to track percent spent, but percent complete, I don't know that I necessarily know how to answer that one. Mark or Kat, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to talk about that later. Is that unless you're just saying, yeah, because percent complete on a project is a judgment that belongs to the project manager based on the production, and it's not going to be reflected in Deltec, right? If it's percent complete, I mean, if that's what the question is.
Yes, I posed the question. I'm used to seeing where PMs will track percent complete versus percent spent. So that, as we know, when you start a project out, it takes more labor to start the project before it starts ramping up with percent complete. But my understanding is usually you try to, at 50% complete, you try to be 50% spent and then ride out that growth curve. So you're maximizing your percent complete, because as you reach 100% complete, you're going to spend more money to get there. And so my understanding, what I'm used to, is to track that parameter very closely, if you will, in the second half of a project. It's the opinion of some that you're never going to reach 100%. So at some point, because you can always find mistakes, you can always go back and tweak something. So at what point is there a metric to say, okay, enough is enough, 95% is close enough percent complete because we're at 99% spent. So that's so that we stay on budget, basically.
Yeah,
That's
I think, and I'll talk about that in the second half here, but that's really the PM's job. That's really the PM's judgment, because and then ultimately you're balancing liability, right? I mean, I'm getting off track here a little bit, but if you can put a successful documents out with low change orders and have only completed 90% of the documents, as an example, and stay within budget or get under budget, then wonderful, right? To do that. So it's all about being complete, change orders, and LaBella's liability. But that's a PM judgment.
So I guess my question goes to the fact that is that a metric that Deltec tracks? And what I'm hearing, it doesn't. Okay.
No.
So
and many times I have created separate Excel spreadsheets for me on my larger projects to help me with that judgment, that overall.
Understood.
Yep. So just if I can interject real quickly with just 2 quick points. So what you're talking about, just to not percent complete in the world of Deltec and project management is a little bit different than a plan set completion. So I just want to make sure we're distinguishing those 2 terms. But the comparison of how much of the budget has been spent versus how much of the project has been completed overall, that analysis is called earned value. And so Mark will be talking about that. There is a report in that we have in Deltec where you can enter in the information, like where you believe you are in terms of the percent overall project complete and do that analysis. But Mark, like I said, Mark will be talking about it. Some of the questions that we're seeing posed in here regarding this one that was just posted, as well as the various reports that we're talking about. Jackie did do a session on dashboards, and I believe that there will be another one forthcoming at some point. And if you have questions about your dashboards and the reports, you can reach out to your biller and they'll go through them with you, or you can reach out to Jackie. So there's definitely lots of different report options, and I can also help with some of them, but I'm not as good as they are.
Yeah, and I didn't realize there was a manual option that you could put the PM could add a judgment to Delta.
It's essentially, when you're looking at the percent budget, like Jackie showed the screen where it said that the budget was, say 90% used up. You in your head are thinking, okay, I've reached out to all my team members. I am at 90%, or I'm only at 50%. That earned value analysis is going to tell you whether or not you're in trouble or not. So, and you're doing that every day as you're trying to assess where you are with the project as a PM.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. So I do have a poll question. Heather, if you could help me. So I'd like to know if you guys know, when do collections fall on the project manager's shoulders? Oh, no, not that one. The collections one, sorry.
Sorry, I
No,
googled
it's
it.
okay. I skipped one.
User
Nope,
error.
nope.
I am so sorry.
No, it's okay.
All right, let's try it one
Yeah,
more time.
that one.
You have to give her the numbers, Jackie. All right, you have an answer?
Okay,
And-
so most of you think it's after 60 days. Okay, so it's actually after 120 days that collections fall on the project manager's shoulders. So we do believe that it's after 120 days because at that point in time we've exhausted our accounts receivable collections effort that accounting can do at that point. We've sent statements, we've sent invoice reminders, we've kind of done everything that we can do in accounting to do everything that we can do. So at that point, we think that it maybe is not something that they have an issue with paying the invoice, but maybe something to do with the actual work that was performed. So that's why we think that after 120 days, then it's the project manager's responsibility. However, accounting is still here to help you with the collection efforts. So anything that you need after 120 days, it's not like, good luck. We're still here. So anything that you guys need after 120 days, we're more than happy to help you with. This AR invoice review is very helpful. So it's going to show you everything that's outstanding that you are listed as a project manager on. So you don't have to keep the projects open for this utility to show up on your dashboard. You can close the projects down when you feel that the work has been completed. So if there is an open unpaid invoice, this utility will show it. You can see the outstanding invoices. What's really nice in our accounting department is we show, we upload everything that we send to a client. So if there's any forms or vouchers that we send over to the client along with the invoice, we upload it to Deltek. So what the client gets is uploaded into Deltek. So you can get that rate from this utility. So I do want to show you that in real time because I think that there's real value in that. So within this utility, you would click on the project that you wanted to see, and you would click on View Detail. It's going to show up on my other screen. So when you click View Detail, it's going to detail the invoices that are outstanding, the invoice dates, the total amount billed, and then the balance, and then where the balance is sitting within the aging. And then you would just click on the invoice that you wanted to view. You can click on Preview Invoice, and then that's the invoice that would populate. And then this is the copy of the invoice that was sent to the client. So the copy of the invoice is right at your fingertips. So if you ever needed to get a copy of the invoice, this is where you would go to get it. You also have can get copied of the paid invoices as well, which I'll show you later on. But I wanted to show you this function. And you can also see the last time a project was paid as well. You would just click on the next flashlight button that says last receipt. And then this was the last time that we received a payment on this particular project. Any questions on accounts receivable at all? I would like to make one other point between accounts receivable and accounts payable, because sometimes there is a little confusion between this. If you have a vendor invoice that is linked within your client invoice, that vendor invoice does not get paid until our client invoice is paid. So just because it gets approved and sent to our accounts payable, our internal accounts payable department, we then have to bill that to our client, and then our client has to then pay LaBella. Once our client pays LaBella, then we can pay your vendor invoice. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that whole life cycle of your vendor invoice, because sometimes that can be a little confusing. People think that their vendor invoice gets paid right away, but that's not the case. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that. And then new to this current fiscal year that we're in, so fiscal year 2023, any invoice over 500 days old, which is a year and a half, does go against your division's gross profit. So it is important that you do get those collections coming in. You don't want your invoices going over 500 days because it will be going against your division's gross profit.
And then the only project management thing, so it usually goes against the project manager's division, right? On a multidiscipline project, it goes against the project manager's division.
Correct.
Unless the project manager has to be diligent and present the case on which division or divisions were responsible, and then that's got to be noted and submitted with accounting so that it's fairly distributed back.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yep. So this is just another way for you to look at your outstanding AR. This is just a link for you to click on. So within the dashboard, it's under My Reports, just called AR Aging Dashboard. Some people don't like using this utility where they have to click in between everything. So this is just a link where you can click on it. So just another way for you to monitor your AR. My unbilled aging, this is a report for you to view where your WIP is sitting in the aging process. So your WIP should be staying current. Anything that's going outside of the 91 to 120, and even then I get a little twitchy about, but your invoicing should be completed monthly, and if it isn't being completed monthly, you should be having a conversation with your biller. If your billing is being held for any reason, just making sure that you're having, that conversation with your biller. Maybe it's being held because you're working on an amendment or you're working on a contract extension. Just making sure that you're giving your biller the extra information as to why you're holding the WIP for that long. If you are holding, consultant invoices, again, you're holding those vendor invoices, they're not getting paid. So just keeping in mind that if you're holding vendor invoices, they're not going to be happy about not getting paid either. So just keep that in mind as well.
Bill, yeah, keep billing.
Yeah, keep billing.
Keep billing.
Yeah. This report is just a way for you to look up expenses that have hit your project. This will show all of the expenses that have hit your project job to date. It will also show the supporting document as well. It gives you a link. So this page button, if you can click right on it, and you'll be able to see the attachment. So anything that you send through to Deltec or anybody that has expenses that charge to your project, they're required to enter their document, upload their document and stuff. So you can always see the attachments right to your project. So you can always see that as well. Some of these reports can get a little lengthy. So especially like the project detail report, I do like to show this is a nice function. There's this like slim gray line here. If you click on this, it brings up the document map here, and then it gives you the project number and name. So this is a nice function. If you click the collapse menu, then it brings you right to that project number that you're looking for. So this is just like a nice little neat trick that I like to show project managers because it makes it a little bit easier to navigate the reports. Same thing for that expense lookup dashboard, but I just don't want to click the link because it'll take forever to run. So the next function is the project list function. So this is really nice because it provides a list of all of your active projects. So once you get a project, it will automatically be added to this list. Same thing, once you close a project, it'll be removed from the list as well. This utility, you can select the fields to view here as well. And there are some nice financial fields as well. So this can be customized. So you can customize them. So right here, whatever you have labeled is like, I have it labeled as my project list, but if you click this here and click select fields, there are all these available columns to select from. So if you wanted to add something like the PO number, you would select it and click add and click OK, and then it populates here for you. So then you can see the PO number added. So just another nice function. Another thing to add, if you don't have your dashboard set up, please reach out to your biller. We can get it added for you and stuff too. Like, I don't expect you guys to figure out how to get your dashboard set up. Your biller will get this set up and then walk you through each utility. So like, please don't try to figure out this stuff on your own. So the project info center. So to get to the project info center, so this is where I really kind of dive into using Deltec. This is where it's my most valuable. So you can click right from using my project list. You can click on one of these blue hyperlinks, and it brings you right into the project info center. And sometimes Deltec likes to move quickly, and sometimes not. So right here is the main general page here, which is really nice. Gives you a lot of good general information. Let me just find the page that I'm at here. Just want to make sure I'm staying on top. Okay, so the budget tab, the budget and revenue tab. So this gives you the planned compensation for the project. If you click this shapes button, you can pin it. And if you have multiple phases, then you can click between each phase and get the planned compensation for each phase. And then over to the right here, it will give you some job to date information, some, and it will also give you the unbilled detail as well, and where the unbilled dollars are sitting. So you can see the amount of labor that's unbilled and that there's an unbilled consultant sitting on here as well. The next, we have a team tab as well. And what's really nice about this one is that you can click refresh hours and it will update the hours that are sitting on here. Anything that's blue and underlined is a hyperlink that will drill down farther and bring you up more detailed information. Same thing with the vendors. If you click refresh cost amount, it will update the cost amount that's sitting for that vendor. So if you're trying to keep track of a vendor contract amount, you can click on the cost amount here and really drill down and see how many invoices that vendor has sent us. So that way you can keep track of it if you have multiple phases that they've like tried to bill us against. Where accounting really lives and breathes, though, is project review. So project review, it always defaults to the cost tab. So, and I'm just going to pin my phases again here. So the cost tab, so it's going to give you the contract fee again. So what's planned for the labor, if you have any expenses, any consultants again, and then the overall amount. It's going to show you the actual cost amount that it has cost LaBella to run the project. So the direct labor amount that it has cost us, anything that's blue and underlined again is something that you can drill down farther into. We give you the cost amount so that way you can back into the project multiplier. So although that this is very helpful information, so that way you can back into the project multiplier to know what your project multiplier is and to know how much it costs LaBella to run the project. Where you want to be at is the billing tab. So that way you know against your project compensation how much you truly have spent on this project. And this is also where accounting is going to see how much against your project budget, how much you have spent. So this is where we're going to track you and kind of see, you know, when you hand in your billing, if you, you know, tell us to bill $5,000 and you have spent $8,000 so far in your billing report, we're going to say, oh, you know, you've spent $8,000. You're telling us to bill $5,000. What are we doing with the other $3,000? You know, so we'll help manage back to you with the other WIP. This is also this last tab, this accounts receivable tab. This is where you can manage your AR as well. So this is where you can see your unpaid and your paid invoices. So this particular project has 2 paid invoices. So you have total bills. There's no balance. These two invoices have been paid, and this one is unpaid. So there's a balance. There's a total bills, and then there's a balance as well. Trying to see if this is where I usually stop. No, there's custom reports. So let me switch back to the PowerPoint.
Three more.
Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to stay on
Yeah, no, you're
my timing.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so custom reports. So custom reports, there's really the thing to take away from here is that there's a lot of things to do in reports. The way to run a custom report is to click on the options first, and to then update the records selected. So you can always use a global report and change it to what you need to run, and then save it down as a personal favorite as well. So I always I want to touch on this so that way you can change a global report and then save it as a custom and a personal favorite. And if you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out to me. That's where I'll stop.
Yeah. Okay. You want to take a break here before Heather? Want to take a
Yep.
10-minute break here?
Sure, we take about a 10-minute break. So if everyone would just be back at, we'll say at 11:58. All right, thanks everyone. See you back
Thanks.
then.
Okay. Waiting for my little recording thing. So this is dovetails a lot with what Jackie just presented here. I mean, and we talked about a little bit on here is that these are indicators, right? I think this is where there's a humanness to project management that is why it is so important, and based on the success or lack of, on projects, is there's a lot of moving parts, but it's the project manager who is, overseeing and overriding this. So as we look through Deltec, I mean, it's a lot of indicators, but it's up to the project managers to investigate those indicators. Is it good news or is it bad news? And on hours versus efficiency, I mean, the classic example that I give is on the Schoharie County project that I was working on. We'd finished the design development phase, that 60% document phase, and I told everybody, let's go. And this was in early November, and I get back, watching things progress. I get back after New Year's vacation, checking Deltec, checking into the hours, and it looks like the civil group is, not to pick on them, but it just happened to be the civil group, looked like they were very efficient, that they hadn't used a lot of hours, that they were sitting there, and the next deadline was like a month and a half away. And I investigated with those guys, and they thought that there was another deadline. And and I'm pretty good about deadlines. I like to, I think it's here is a big success of projects. And so they were all of a sudden behind. They had lost a month of time, over probably a month of time, and they had to do double time in order to catch up, because I didn't have the flexibility to move the schedule out. Client expectations, I mean, usually it's budget and schedule, but depending upon who your client is, it could be deliverables also. I mean, I've had several of these full service contracts where I'm construction manager, I'm the architect, engineer, we're doing geotechnical, we're doing survey, we're doing the seeker reviews. I mean, so we could be responsible for everything. And so again, you're the conductor orchestrating the whole team and the whole process doing it. Financial performances, I think by phase and by milestone is good ways to really decide where you are on a percent complete basis, either in Deltec of the budgets you gave everyone in your PIF, or on the kind of having a progress set printed out, you getting your eyes on them, talking to team members about plans, specifications, calculations, things like that, to kind of to see where they're at, and it's trying to balance that all together. So you can put poll question number 5 up if it's Heather or whoever's doing them.
All right.
be fairly simple. Just gives me an indicator. What do we have?
We're at about 75%. So we might still have some people eating or something. So
Some stragglers, yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, so no, so we have it's it's 36% or so. That's not too bad. I find and it could be that you have smaller projects. It could be if you're a biller or somebody and you don't necessarily do projects. But I just find we are trying to be as open as we can across the board. People have access to their pieces of Deltec. The managers were communicating manpower. And so to me, nothing is better than taking either you do it or work with your biller, get a snapshot of where you are with hours and fees, and you don't have to share rates and everything else. But it gives them, what the budget is, and so it's a good snapshot to get everybody kind of a milestone report and to start. Hey, you're either doing a great job or certain divisions, they got to up their game and get going. So you can go to the next slide.
Mark, there was a comment in the chat that said
Sorry.
98% of my projects are lump sum. Can we still divide it into phases?
It's easier to divide projects of lump sum. It's easier to divide the lump sum. It's only if sometimes our projects are only one phase. And if it is only one phase, again, depending upon the fees that you have, then you might want to break it down into tasks, right? I mean, I get some cases where owner hires me to do just 30% documents, that's it. Then they're going to make a decision after 30%. Well, to give you, depending upon the duration of that, you may then want to break that down into tasks of the 30% to get, your arms around it with team members. But in Deltec, any of my projects, any of my lump sum projects are all broken down by fee. So that could be done in Deltec or whoever you're working with, and we could talk later too. So detecting limitations and faults. I mean, this is a proactive approach. So this is, throughout the life of the project that you're doing. It's not one and done on doing this thing. But one of my suggestions is with schedules is depending upon, because we're talking to a variety of project managers, junior managers, senior managers out here. And I'm just kind of generally saying schedules are so important to have. Having an unrealistic schedule is as bad as having, no schedule, because then people don't know. And people, so you need to really negotiate, take your best shot as manager, putting the schedule together, get buy-in from your team members on what the durations are. And then, I would review it. If you're a junior manager, I would review it with a senior person to say, hey, from your experience with XYZ type of projects, how does this schedule, work? How is it? The next level is this, interim submissions. I mean, this is what we were talking about earlier. I actually had an Excel spreadsheet put together, and I listed every drawing that we guesstimated early on, every drawing that was going to be in the drawing sheet. And I would circulate that either on a monthly basis or on a milestone basis to all the team members. And you fill in your best guess. You're reviewing this, right? So this is kind of at a macro level. You fill in the percent complete that every one of those drawings are complete. And then I would add that up. And, add up the percentages, and gives you an indicator between plan specifications and calculations on kind of, you know, where you were at. And so that was on the larger projects, it was like the only way you could get your arms around. On the smaller projects, you could probably give it the visual test, you know, from expectation standpoint. I think the other thing from my other story with a visual test is I was working with I would say a younger project manager on the Yates County Courthouse project, and I was doing a QC on the design development phase, the 60% complete phase of documents, and I'm flipping through the documents, and there was no building sections in the documents at the completion of DD, and it's like, well, if you don't have any building sections and you've not completed DD, and if you don't understand how this building goes together, then you're behind on getting into the final construction documents. You're gonna have an issue. But ultimately, is what we were saying earlier, it's the alignment of production, schedule, and fee. It's that tripod that you're always trying to balance, and they're always moving. They're always moving on you with team members and projects and deadline and changes. So use Deltek to check hours of the team members. So, you know, she went, you know, Jackie did a great job with that. And, you know, the person who asked the question about, is there a Deltek 101? Well, hopefully today you got a little bit. If you haven't been a Deltek user, you got a taste of for managers, kind of Deltek 101. But if not, there are certainly, I think, LaBella University. You could talk with your biller, of course, and then obviously with LaBella University, I think that there has been requests for, you know, drilling down a little deeper with Deltek. I think PMs need to be optimistic. You know, we should be, as creatures. We shouldn't be pessimistic, because we need to be optimistic with our team members, with our clients. But we got to still be realistic. You know, we can't be doing that. You know, we got to have a feeling if the project is going well or if it's getting into trouble. And if it's getting into trouble, what do we do about that? And you should be thinking about that, you know, earlier as it goes along. You know, is there time to make changes? How are we with the schedule? Do I have to warn the owner? You know, what are solutions here to think about? So we'll do the poll question 6. To follow up to that discussion. I call it the spidey sense, you know, as I'm going along with a particular project and I have an expectation in my head on things that to be complete and tasks and things like that to be done. And it's like, okay, we're not hitting all these milestone things. I got to start making some changes. So. And when we used to do this in person, I used to just ask people out loud, but we turned it into a poll question because we're all over the country.
All right, we're at 81%, so I'm gonna close the poll. And here are the results.
Good. That's a good answer. That's what's not a trick question, but it truly is. As managers, I mean, I would certainly have it from a cost benefit standpoint. You're better off using the same employees and working in them additional hours or get authorization, or as you're playing the balancing game with the budget for overtime. I've had a couple instances, you know, shocking as it can be, where I had to finish the structural drawings or finish my interior drawings in an addendum. It's like it's a heartbreak to do that, but when you got a hard schedule and you got to live with it, and the owner's, you know, proceeding, and you have begged, borrowed, or tried to see if you could have a time extension and you can't, it's certainly what you can do. Then the last and most expensive report is additional manpower, because you're bringing generally fresh people into the project. They're not as intimate as what's going on. Therefore, you're not going to get hour per hour efficiency out of them as you would by using the same employees and trying to do more. So next slide. So on time, within budget, obviously this is the goal of every project, right? This is wonderful, news for the owner. A lot of times when I'm working with owners and giving them monthly reports and status reports, I mean, you try to sneak this into the meeting minutes or things like that. Is so you try to develop this relationship with them, before you have to. You might sense that you need to go to them for additional services or something else like that. Is you can kind of track this, so this is also tracked through construction, but it's where you want to be. To me, it's all about the schedule. If you're a younger manager and you're getting ramped up on Deltec and things like that, is that being a taskmaster about the schedule, you're to me 80% there of being successful. If you negotiated a schedule, buying in the schedule, and then you just are relentless about the schedule, you're going to be 80% there to having a successful project, and as you're watching it and going through, and again, no fake schedules. And then being the gatekeeper of the scope. I think this is maybe a lot of managers realize this, but you got to be in the center of the meeting minutes, of design meetings, owner information, and taking the owner information and disseminating it to all the team members, and keeping them on task. And if they have ideas for additional services, or if they have ideas that the owner is pushing them into additional services, you got to be the gatekeeper. This goes back to memorizing the contract. You're not going to know if you're being asked to do something out of scope if you don't have a sense of where the contract should be. So I think it's that's one of the most important things there. So we can go to the next slide. Change management. So I think as managers, depending upon your personality, if you're a relationship guy with the owners, and some of the owners can be very tough, right? But you almost need to be a relationship guy, with them. Back to memorizing the contract, the additional services, and any idiosyncrasies of the contracts. You need to be disseminating that, as I just said, back to the team members. But I think it's also on us to educate the owners. I work with a lot of, I'll say, one-time owners. I work for a lot of county government, and they don't build stuff every day. They do roads, maybe roads and road repairs and water and sewer and things like that, but they don't build things every day. So there's unfortunately a perception of what architects do and what we don't do and what's in our contract. And many times it is, our responsibility to educate the owners, to do that. I think while, also we want to watch our employees. I mean, I've had a good architect who I was working with on a court project, and he's just one of these pleasing guys, right? He wanted to keep the owner happy. So every time the owner had an idea that they wanted to do on the court design, he made another iteration, another scenario of the court plan. We were up to iteration 7 or 8 of the floor plans. And it's like, John, you can't be doing that. We got to be talking that through. We got to push back a little bit. If this is our project that we are responsible for, and we're the knowledgeable project manager for this thing. I mean, just got to keep the guardrails on, right? So some change is okay, but sometimes it's not. So being sensitive to that, I mean, you know, being aware of that, and I think we need to be sensitive to the scope and fee. I don't like to nickel and dime them either. I don't want to. If I have some nice size contracts or things like that, there's, again, depending upon the fee that you have and what percent it is, but a general rule of thumb for me on these medium and larger projects is if my team is crying that it's something additional service, it better be over $5,000, you know, something like that. 1,000 is probably too low, but I'll go to them and my team members and say, okay, you think you're out of bounds here. Let's capture that. Let's open up another phase on Deltec. Let's track those hours, or give me an idea of what you think that additional service is. And then I'll make a judgment there of whether, you know, if it's only, oh, I need 10 more hours, that's only $1,000 or so. It's like, well, okay, I'm going to wait a while. I'm not going to bother the owner for $1,000. But what you might do also is, if you're hearing from multiple people, you might bundle them. So, I mean, on these medium and larger size projects, the mechanical guys could be crying, the electrical guys could be, the structural guys could be. So if there's really something there and you're trying to be, you know, a good relationship guy with the owner, you could be giving them a heads up a little bit, but then you could bundle them. And usually if you're going to send them an additional service thing, I would call them before you send it. I mean, I wouldn't be sending it just, you know, blindly to do that.
And Mark, if I could just interject just real quickly. So this goes back to what we talked about in session 4 about establishing with the client at the very beginning of the project how they want to manage change, because life, death, taxes change. You know, it's like as soon as a
Right.
project starts, something is going to change. So what Mark is talking about is these are all different approaches that we can take, but you would establish how you would want to handle this at the beginning of the project. Like for some projects, you might have an additional services phase that the client knows has signed on to it at the proposal stage. Other clients, you may want to use that change order. The project change tracking form to keep track of them. But either way, they need to be engaged early on so that they know how these things are going to be managed. And like Mark says, so you never ever want to send a contract modification form like that short form I showed you without having the conversation first with them. That is just a sure way to make somebody unhappy. Like if I've got a contractor working on my house and they need more money for something and they just send me an extra bill, I am not going to be happy. So just put yourself in their shoes and make sure you have the conversation up front.
Yeah, and many times the owner's manager that we're working with, sometimes they have to have approvals upstream. And so that's the other reason you want to notify, is if they gotta give their boss a heads up. Hey, LaBella needs another $15,000 for this, or this looks like we're out of bounds. Do you want to keep going in that direction? Do you want to change direction? I mean, what do you want to do? Services versus errors and omissions, E&O issues. So some of my clients, and especially my hourly clients, you got a pot of money you're working against, and they want to know about the potential change, but they'd rather push that out until later in the project, which may even go into construction administration. So I have also traded, okay, we got an error and omission during construction that we found that is valued at $10,000. And hey, early on, remember the email I sent you? Remember the conversation we had early on? We've done about $10,000, we've done $15,000 of extra work for you. And, we can possibly, trade that. The worst thing that I think that a lot of managers do is we'll do no cost additional services or free work or political work, and we don't tell them, because we just go along. So we're thinking they should love us. We're doing all this free stuff for this. Well, they don't know how much you love them. and you got it. That's where that follow-up message or a follow-up email or a memo or something else like that. If we're doing free work, it should be noted, to do that as we go along. So I love schedules, a taskmaster of schedules, but I think I always do a macro schedule for the owner and then a micro schedule for the team members, right? So in the micro schedule, I'm going to put as every deadline that I can think of. When is your pre-submission due to me? When are we going to print? When is it going to go on the street? When are draft submissions coming in? When is the final submission? But for the owner schedule, I'm just putting major milestones. And I would also say with the owner schedule, this is during the contract phase, negotiate the longest or fairest schedule you can for LaBella. If you already know that one of the divisions is just slammed and they're going to be slammed for the next 6 months, then you know this project should be able to be done in 8 or 9 months. You may negotiate it at 12 just to give LaBella a better chance to do that, or team members to do that. I mean, so you can't forget that during the contract negotiation phase, the schedule is one of those. Even if the RFP said something, and you got to play it, right? I mean, you got to play the relationship thing in. But all I'm saying is, I never give the owner a micro schedule. I only give the owner a macro schedule on doing.
Margaret, you
again,
had a good comment there in the comments. I don't know, Mark, if you saw, but Margaret made a good comment in there saying, if the client agrees to pay for the additional services and make the changes, they also need to understand that we can't always accommodate a current, the current project deadline. So going back to the session that I did, that's at that point, it is a business decision that they are making, and it's not up to us to make that decision for them. They have to weigh the pros and the cons on whether or not they want to do it now, or like Mark says, maybe they want to do it later.
right.
And then there's a question too in the comments, Mark.
How do you handle scheduling shortfalls when you are not included in the proposal?
That should not happen. The technical leads, the short answer is that should not happen. All the technical leads need to be involved in developing the proposal and the schedule. And then that's something that we're working on at LaBella and trying to get that to change. And if that does come up, I've been in that spot and I just do the best that I can, but sometimes you have to have those conversations and elevate the conversations up within the management of your department. So if you are a project manager and you're in that situation, you may need to elevate that. And then sometimes those decisions are not yours to make, and your manager, your supervisor will have those conversations. And sometimes it goes up to the DD level, and priorities may have to switch to deal with
then
that.
my part two to that is, were you involved with the budget? So, I mean, it's a two things. I mean, we're pushing the managers in the way the Deltec system and the way the PIF is set up. It's set up that everybody involved in the senior people will say, the division people are getting a copy of the PIF. They know what their budget is. And that's the thing. We're trying to be more transparent that every division that is going to touch this project that I know of ahead of time. So if they know the budget, then they should know the schedule also to do that. And, so it is, again, I think it's the manager's responsibility to, be proactive with his team members that he's assigned to. I mean, so, and managers can't do we can't do, if we adequately gave the electrical division their budget and their schedule and they didn't disseminate it down to the electrical engineer, okay, well, then there's only so much I can do. I know the electrical group knew about it, the other one here is, sorry for the interruption, but the question really isn't a yes or no question. Some of you have not been person setting those deadlines. Some of us have not been the person setting those deadlines. I guess I don't understand the question, but it has to go back to. And
it had to do with the question you asked, it was a yes or no answer. It was a couple of questions back. And you were setting about CDs, DDs, or S,
yeah,
it's like some of us don't know. We're just working along and we don't set those.
Yeah, I would say that as a project management session, right? And I don't know where you fall into this as a project management session. Does the project manager, as a project manager, do you send out milestone budgets to the team members? And I would say when I send those milestone budgets out to the team, I don't send them down to every lower level, you know, every drafter, every junior engineer on the project. I send it out to the core team. It's those disciplines then responsibility to disseminate it down to their, to their internal team. So I don't know if that helps. That's why it's a yes or no answer. Either the project manager who's running the project sends it out to the core team members, or he doesn't. That was my intention. But I sense your frustration that, okay, I may not be getting it. Yeah. What else do I have here? Optimistic schedules, buy-in from team members. Yeah, definitely buy-in from team members. And assumptions and exclusions to control cost. I mean, so it's the devil's in the details is what I find. Is I've gone down the road through the schematic phase of the design development phase, and we owed them a cost benefit report for PV design, solar photovoltaic design. We owed them cost benefit report for the type of mechanical system, and you can forget about it, right? As things are going along, and it's just continuing to check the contract to making sure that you don't have a change there.
It all goes back to the proposal when Chris was talking about proposal development, scope, schedule, cost, assumptions, number of reviews, number of iterations, number of submittal reviews. The more we can pin those things down, the more grants we have later on for addressing some of these things that happened in the project.
So the next slide. So this is internal communication, with the managers on doing this. I mean, I think these are the top three things. If I am the project manager, whoever my report is ahead of me, whether it's a division director, whether it's a principal, whether it's somebody else in the group leader, whoever it is, but if there's budget issues, schedule issues, error and omissions, or potential error and omissions, or you're smelling an error and omission, this is the time to kind of, you need a sense on when to go and kind of notify them, to doing it. So it's not that you can't necessarily handle the situation yourself, but as you're going down the road, is that many times I find that, two heads are better than one as you're trying to strategize that. If you're a junior manager or something and don't have a lot of experience and you need to navigate an issue with schedule, people are in my office all the time and trying to give them creative ideas on what to do, on how to get yourself out of a situation or whatnot. But it's just these are the top issues when you want to bring someone in and talk about it. So I think the PM needs to be diligent and proactive. But I think where you need to be diligent is don't just use management as a crutch. When I was a younger manager, I was great to bring a problem to the principal, but I wasn't necessarily bringing him solutions. I was saying, oh yeah, I'm sensing this and this, or what, here you go. What do you want to do about it? But I think as a good project manager, you're entrenched in the project. Your ears, you have the best eyes and ears on the team members. Think about solutions, think about multiple solutions, and bring them, when you go have that meeting, with your, division report person, bring some solutions that are out there. And all kinds of things can be doing this. I mean, this can be staff performances, scope changes, political issues, political favors they're asking of us, outside forces that are pulling us, construction managers, it's all kind of stuff that can be forces in there that are causing the reason to pull them in to do that. I think the other thing is managers, again, being optimistic on this, as most of us are. You got to leave your egos at the door. I mean, where I have seen, some of the managers fall down a little bit is that they think that they know there's a problem, they know there's something going on here, and they're trying to fix it. They're trying to go it alone. They're trying to fix it themselves. And then when it really becomes a crisis, then they come to me. So they knew about this 3 months ago, but then they come to me 3 weeks before the deadline or something else like that. And now they're talking to me about what can we do? How can we fix this? What can we do? And it's like, yes, everybody pitches in and helps, but the lessons learned here is be sensitive to it. Don't be afraid. It's about the project. Don't, you gotta, I'm not even saying you gotta swallow your pride, but just don't be so type A personality or prideful to go it alone. And these are tough projects usually. So keep it as a business thing. You have a lot more options to fix things. Time allows a lot more options to fix things than trying to do things, at the last minute. So that's kind of that for, going it alone. So we can go to the next slide. Let's see, do I have a poll question I want to do here? Let's see. Do poll question 8. Do poll question 8 there, Heather. So this is the risk assessment phase, and try to think that I'm pretty good at doing this. It takes, some experience or whatever, but it just some sensitivity. I mean, this is where your project managers are your Renaissance people, right? You got to be thinking in 4 dimensions, as you're thinking about the project, between budgets, schedules, issues, solutions, being creative, being able to communicate.
Did you say poll 8?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is just an example of.
All right, we're at about 80%, so I'm gonna end the poll. Here are the results.
So I am, in my training and doing that. So the answer is false. The answer is, from a risk assessment standpoint, say it once and say it well. Do not plaster it. I've had architects and junior people. Oh, we got to tell them that we got. Now, I will say I have been pretty impressed with those who are using the Revit software. That there is a lot of networking done with this Revit software that you can say it once, and it will be spread throughout the drawings if it's in one location. But the general with specifications and things like that, again, part of risk assessment is if you have to change things, or if there's important messages on the specifications or drawings, you're better off clearly referring the contractor to the location where the answer is. For the washer and dryer on the plumbing drawing, see specification number 1345. Don't say washer, Maytag, model number 1234. Send them to the location to do that. And so under this risk assessment, I think at a point when you're watching the budget and you're watching the project, and this is probably at your 60% time, this has come to me many times, is the design more complex than it needs to be? I mean, we were doing a jail down in Wyoming County, and it was downtown Warsaw, this historic place, and they were trying to put this turret on the corner of the building to give it some aesthetics downtown. And we were spending so much money with the structural guys, with the architectural guys, with the, trying to put this turret on here. And I said, we got to a point, I says, let's just eliminate this turret and do another aesthetic. We're killing ourselves here, it was, so we simplified the thing. You took a step back, as you're talking with the owner and communicating, we took a step back and said, okay, we're going to save ourselves a lot of money to do it. Is it difficult to construct? I mean, and some of this sometimes is working with your estimator or your construction manager or somebody in-house. It depends on your project, but we can design some really cool things, but sometimes it's like, well, how do I build that? I mean, we were doing, I have a building that's a donut shaped building, and the owner wanted to do an addition inside of the donut. Well, I went and got a hold of some construction managers and my estimator and said, okay, what kind of premium? How do I do this? What crane has to, what size crane is available to do this? And, we just, went our way through that, On renovation projects, I've had some major renovation projects where I had a structural guy design a beam that was 40 feet long. He never thought about how to get the beam in the building. It's like, wait, how do you think I'm going to do this? And so we had to break the beam up and then have moment connections inside, which is more detail than you need, but connections, to make it, to get it inside the building. Phasing costs a lot of money on your risk assessment thing. If you can reduce the phases, it's just going to save overall money to the owner, and it could save overall money to your design. Sometimes you can't help it. I had at Steuben County Court project, they wanted zero swing space. They wanted to move everybody once. And so we started this domino effect, and it was a 5-year project, but they didn't spend any money on that swing space or temporary space. Has the product, product data been reviewed with all the engineers? Again, getting team buy-in. The one thing that I thought was funny about this is we did a theater. This is several years ago. LaBella did a theater, and our structural guys had never done a theater fly with all the ropes and pulleys. So they designed it 3 or 4 times, and we finally got to an assessment standpoint is that they had never done it before. Because there's so many dynamics going on with the theater fly, it's like, okay, we should have gone with an outside expert. I mean, and sometimes you got to do that. I mean, you could still be LaBella employees, but you could have specific pieces of the design that you got to bring out of house to do that. So, is the construction schedule realistic? You're thinking about that, and again, if you have an estimator or a construction manager, that's a good time to test that, to do that. Sometimes we're more optimistic. They know about lead times and materials sometimes better than we do, with the supply chain issues that are going on, but just manpower, and doing that. And this is all going into, providing a better document to the owner, to do that. And with your budget. Hey, in my proposal, I only budgeted 12 months. I quote how many months my assumptions are for my construction administration phase. We get in with a construction manager and he says, oh, we're never going to do this under 18 months. Well, that gives me a door then. It gives me an opening to go to the owner to say, hey, I only budgeted 12 months. I need an additional service for an extra 6 months here, just because we didn't know what we didn't know. The right talent and experience. Sometimes you don't have any choice. But I just would say is if you have a rookie on the team, knowingly a rookie on the team, there's got to be a communication with that division. Hey, this guy is not a senior engineer; he's a junior engineer. You're assigning him to the project. He's going to have some learning curves on here that I may not be able to afford on the project. So you just got to have some of that discussion with them, as you're going along.
Mark,
I think it's yep.
I just wanted to just take a quick moment to say, we realize that not everybody on this call is necessarily managing a construction project or doing design project. we all have different technical specialties, and all of our projects are different, but all these concepts of risk management that Mark is talking about, which are, specific to design, build, and architecture, if you just take a moment, they're translatable into all of our various fields. So like in environmental services, if you're going to be doing a tank pull, you may not be out in the field, managing construction of a building, but if you're on the field and you're managing that piece of work, all these same approaches and same concepts apply. So I just wanted to put a little plug in there because we're getting a peek into the world of architecture here, which we don't always have an opportunity to do, and I personally found it very interesting. I just want to make sure you all are realizing that these approaches and concepts all apply to everything that we do. We just have to kind of take a second to think about how they translate.
Sure, it's just I'm trying to tell some stories on some life experiences, but whether it's a $5,000 fee and you have certain team players on there, or it's a $500,000 fee, I think the concepts are still, I think the concepts are still applicable. And then the last piece on here, I think, again, project managers, we don't have to know everything, but we got to know where to get the answers, right? I mean, so I think that we have to, and experience helps drive that. But we have to have a sense of the orders of the approvals and some of the additional services and the time some of this takes to do things. So this is just examples on a building project that, my topographic or survey, how long does that take? When should that happen? When should the State Environmental Quality Review Act, that's our Environmental Site Assessment Act, regulated building materials, how long do they take? When do I need them? Utilities, permits, approvals. You need some sense of that, because if you don't have some sense of that, and these may be required, the owner may be responsible for many of these, but you're that guiding force. You may dovetail some of these back into the schedule that you're hearing about, but these have maybe a sequence or an impact to them. And I'm just saying, as a risk assessment standpoint, project managers need to be aware of the other constraints or other activities on here so you're marching towards a successful project. Next slide. So this is again on with the construction side or the design side, the curve here. So the bottom row is your pre-design, schematic design, design development documents, bidding, construction. So this is just your cost of doing work standpoint. And as you see that line sweeping from down 5% swooping up to the right, that's the cost of design changes. And it's easier early on to make adjustments to the design with the owner as you're going along, where you can see the ability to impact costs, with your design team, it diminishes. It diminishes as you're going along. So you want to work with your owners. It's just a graph. Many of you maybe have seen this before. You just want to make change. You want to make changes and decisions early. You don't want to be making changes during the final documents, and you try not to make these changes during construction documents, because it's going to cost LaBella more in fee. So the next slide. Making adjustments on doing. So as we
Mark,
going along, yep.
Real quick question on that previous slide, the typical effort, the dashed line. I think I know what you're getting at there, but I'm picturing that being the area under that curve being larger. That actually is going to be a taller curve and maybe broader.
Looking at the pre-design, where the dotted line starts on the left with pre-design, I mean, you're starting there. I mean, I suppose that bubble can be as big or small that you want, but in the middle of construction documents is that peak, right? The peak is always going to be in the middle of construction documents, and then it's going to drastically fall off during the bidding phase, and you're going to go to a core team member during construction. So I guess it could be as taller, I think dynamically, right? Unless you think differently, your traditional construction document phase, the typical effort, the IDP effort is the integrated design effort. We all know that under design build, that curve comes back. Your peak now is somewhere between schematics and design development is your peak under a design build effort for those on the call that do design build. So it's just cost of change, right? The purpose of this is the cost of change, and we want to be getting a lot of answers under a risk assessment standpoint. We want to get a lot of answers early, and by the time you're in construction documents, to me, I want that to be a production phase. I preach that it's a production phase. I do not need to meet with the owner very often during the document phase. I want to meet with them a lot during the design, development, schematic, and pre-design.
So what are we doing during the beginning part of the project that we talked about last week to avoid this? Brownie points, bonus points.
I wasn't on the call last week. So.
Talking to people and asking questions.
Talking to people, asking questions, absolutely, and communication and QAQC, right? We're doing our reviews early, consistently, early in the process, because if there's a problem, you want to find it earlier. Once you find it later, it costs a whole lot more money to fix. So.
Yeah, we preach that QC is ongoing. There is no such thing as one QC. If you do one QC, it won't get done. If you do QC at the end, when the documents are voluminous, it's just so difficult to do. So you want to do QC as a continuum, throughout that to look for things. All right. So you're going along. You've decided you need to make some adjustments. You decide you're off the track a little bit. And I like the KISS approach. Keep it simple. On doing this, when you get to that point, is look at your team members. Do we need a new approach to do that? In my line of work with the municipal projects that we're doing, it's very easy for all of us to fall into the thing. That's the way we've always done it. But you get into a point from a budget standpoint, if you can't change team members or something, you got to this is the creative side of managers to say, okay, we got to do something. We got to stop the bleeding. We got to do something, but I still got to meet the deadlines and to do that. Depending upon what phase of design you are when you're doing this, you could outsource. You could say, I know somebody who can draft this. There's a drafting service that I can go to. We're out of people. We're going to save some money by going to an outsourcing drafting. I've done things where the structural group does the design, but the architects draft it. They get red lines on a drawing and somebody else is drafting. This is, again, judgment standpoint, providing the least amount of information on the drawings to get it biddable and to cover LaBella's liability. I mean, that's what we kind of should be doing already to do that. But if we got to really throttle the spending back, that's what you got to do. If you got very expensive people, I've had to do that. Early on, I had a guy who was making more money than I was on the project, and he was like just burning the budget like crazy. I had to make a change. There was no way we could afford it, both of us, and so I had to make a change with that. Manpower needs. I just think that over my years, smaller teams are more efficient with more hours than larger teams with less hours. I worked with a mechanical team on a $20 million project, and they had like 5, 6, 7, 8 guys on there because they were trying to design by committee. And I said, no, we're not gonna design by committee. Then nobody cares, nobody's involved. I want some point people. I don't want 7, 8, 9 guys. I want 3 or 4 guys, to do that. And as PM, you don't necessarily dictate how every division is done, but you can certainly make you're here for profitability, and you could sit there, make your wishes known to, division people and team members to do that. We talked about early on, overtime is an option. It's cheaper when we went over that poll result. It's cheaper to do overtime than it is to bring other people on. And continue to check people in Deltec to make sure they're being productive. I think the last thing is meetings are expensive. Meetings are necessary, but meetings are expensive. I think some of these, I think obviously with our video conferences has made life a lot easier. I minimize the group meetings. I mean, you periodically have to have a group meeting of 10 or 15 people in the meeting to get everybody in sync and everybody, on the same page, fine. But just look at the salaries around the room, and you can, watch your meter just spinning in the meeting. When my structural engineer during a 60-minute meeting has 5 minutes to say, and he's sitting there for 55 minutes doing nothing. So to speak. So I'm a big believer of having quick macro level design meetings and then having breakout discipline meetings. Is it, if I need to talk to my environmental group, let me go spend time with environmental and make that quality time, with plumbing, with structure, with whoever it is, with my biller, whoever it is. To have, quality time, I think is more important. The next slide, number 9. Invoicing. Probably had a poll question for this, but invoice monthly. All else fails, whatever level of project manager you are, you got to go over your billing review. You got to. This is your last chance. And Jackie, if she didn't say it, she'll say it here in a minute here. But this is your last chance before the bill goes out. If there are too many team members on there, or there are team members who are accidentally on there, you got to get them off before the bill goes out. But this is your chance on a monthly basis to see, okay, is there scope creep? Do I have team members camping on the project? This is the problem with sometimes your younger team members, and this is why schedules are important. If we lengthen the project, if we have to, we decide we lengthen the project by a month, do you think that I'm going to get any reduced efficiency? No, everybody's going to camp another 40 hours a week on that for the next month, and that money that you didn't necessarily have accounted for.
This is why we're checking daily, weekly, depending on the size of the project. So by the time the invoice comes out, there's a very, very little you should need to do in the way of those changes.
As Jackie said, make sure everybody's got a rate, and then invoice monthly. So the next slide, I think, is Jackie. We got 5 more minutes here.
Yes. Yeah.
She can preach bill monthly.
Yes, please bill monthly. Heather, can you please launch poll question number 11? So I'd like to know if true or false, accounting can move employees' time to a different project/phase and adjust their rate at any time. So billers, I know you know this answer, so please don't answer it. So Heather, you won't have 100%, to answer this poll question.
I think this is going to be about it, 75% participation.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end the poll.
Okay.
Share the results.
Okay, all right. So a lot of you answered true. So the correct answer is false. So The billing review report is really your one shot to review everything that has been charged to your project, the employees that have charged to your project, the billing rates that they have, the phases that they've charged to it. Once you tell us to send the invoice to the client, that time is then linked to that project and phase, and it's gone. Accounting can then not change anything else. We cannot change the rates. We cannot move the time. There's nothing else further that we can do after that time is rolled into the project or applied to the project. So there's nothing else that we can do. So whether it's been billed or written off or applied, rolled in, whatever you do at that time, once it's been assigned to that project, there's nothing else that we can do. It's gone from our screens within Deltec. So I want to really drive that concept home. So that's why it's so important to really look at these billing reports. Accounting, your billers are your second set of eyes. So we really double check to make sure that, you know, everyone does have a billing rate. And that is something that we are very diligent, but we are also human. So that's something that we might miss. So it's also important that you check that as well. But we have no idea who's supposed to be working on your project. And we have no idea where the time is supposed to be charged. So if people are charging to phase 5 and they're not supposed to be there, we have no idea that they're not supposed to be in phase 5, or that Dustin Bradley is not supposed to be on your project. We have no idea. So that's why it's very important to be checking the employees that charge to your project and the phases that the employees are charging to. When you do hand in your billing report, you know, just letting us know that if time needs to be moved, all you have to do is write that down. You can circle it, you know, write it off in the margins. You can write it in an email to us. We're really not picky, as long as you give it back to us, is really our big thing, as long as we get it back. The other big thing is sub-consultant invoices and expenses. So we will, like, if there's a $10,000 sub-consultant invoice and there's no budget for a $10,000 sub-consultant invoice, you know, we might bring that up, but we also have no idea if invoices are meant to be on your project. So that's another thing to keep in mind as well, that you're keeping track of vendor invoices and that they're charged to your correct phases as well. Same thing about expenses. Again, once they get, you know, assigned to your project and billed, they're gone, so they can't be moved. So keep that in mind as well. And keep in mind that you're checking your budgets and stuff. If one discipline goes over budget, but your overall project is within budget, I mean, the project is still within budget. So at the end of the day, the project is still within budget. So we're still the same company. So, you know, keep that in mind as well. And then I think, Mark, you have one more slide. That was it.
Yeah. And this is just, it's 1 o'clock. So this is just the closing slide for project managers, is that you have the closest tempo and understanding the projects that you're responsible for. You're in the best position to report to the division director, managers, or whoever your report is. They need quarterly reports. We fill out quarterly reports. Sometimes they're monthly reports. So you have the best judgment, and it doesn't have to be perfect. When you know, talk to the senior guys, they need an indication of what's coming down the line. Are we going to have a shortfall? You know, is your particular projects or your forecast for projects, is it going to be increasing over the next 6 months or decreasing over the next 6 months? So you have the best feel from a profitability standpoint, risk assessment standpoint, you know, schedules, fees, And so you just be prepared that you are going to have to report that to help overall LaBella steer the ship, you know, and the last 4 bullets. You know, it impacts hiring or layoffs. It impacts purchasing power, future opportunities, and obviously back to us is incentive compensation. So with that's our conclusion. I don't know if Heather, you want to do any closing or anything for the last session?
Kat usually has a few words. Want to make sure everyone that you fill out the feedback surveys and the emails that will follow this session. And then Kat, is there any other remarks you'd like to add?
Well, thanks everybody for coming. Great asking of questions in the chat function today. I really like it when people ask questions and provide feedback as we go along. The last section is next week. So we look forward to seeing everybody there. I also wanted to mention I have been when people are not able to attend for whatever reason, although we're trying to have everybody attend a session when things do come up. I have been appreciating getting the notes when something comes unexpectedly. So thank you for doing that, and look forward to seeing you all next week.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.